Hey, this is Galangua and Neeple, and we're producing a video on 9 interesting arena FPS games coming up in the future. There isn't any kind of release dates available for most of these games, so quite a lot of what we're talking about is quite speculative, and it's all very much subject to change. But we think there's some really interesting games on the horizon, and we'd quite like to talk about it. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yep, hi, I'm Neeple. So if we go through this in alphabetical order, first up we've got Project, well no not Project, it's just Bluestreak.
Yep.
So this game is made by Cliff Blazinski. Most people may know him. He worked on the Emerald Tournament games. He's an ex-employee at Epic. He's just formed a new studio called Bosky Studios, I believe.
That's the one, yeah.
It's got lots of quite high-profile industry names in there, and they're working on a PC-only arena FPS game.
Yeah, and we've just got some of the kind of concept art flicking through at the moment. It's quite interesting how it's almost like a survival horror, or it's very reminiscent of kind of the Fallout or even DayZ or something. These kind of large, wide landscapes and.
Yeah, if I saw the screenshots without knowing what game they're for, I wouldn't assume it's for an arena FPS game.
Yeah, possibly even an MMO maybe. Like the forest shot is very much almost like a forest from an MMO game.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to see how like they do an arena FPS in this kind of theme, because they usually tend to be kind of either gothic or tend to be like futuristic, and I've not really seen one in this kind of dystopian.
Yeah, yeah. He said so on his Twitter account and on the Bosky Twitter account, they've been asking tons of questions like what do people like in terms of ranking systems for games like this, and they asked some questions about iron sights and things, and they've been taking in community feedback, and it's we don't really know what it's going to shape up like now, I suppose, but it's definitely a big one just because of who's working on it, and the fact that it's a major studio. Well, it's a proper legitimate studio making it, I suppose.
Yeah, some of the games we're going to show off are kind of small studios and indie developments, and other ones are kind of more established names in the shooter community. So it's a mix and match. But this one, he's definitely got some big credentials behind him. It'd be interesting to see what he comes up with.
Yeah.
Right, moving on, we're going to have a look at a game called Chroma, and this is developed by, if you'd like to.
This is Harmonix. Yeah, this is.
Hang on a minute, I'm showing the wrong trailer. There we go. Right, there we go. Chroma, Harmonix.
Yeah, this is a mold breaker of a game.
Yes.
Definitely a new thing for arena FPS. It's so I believe Harmonix also make the Trackmania and Beatmania games.
Oh, right, okay.
Is that right? I might not be right. But it's the concept of this game is that it's an arena FPS game revolving around music.
Yeah.
So I believe your gunshots have to sync up with songs or beats in background, and how they sync up with it depends on how much damage you do or something like that.
It's quite an interesting concept. Like rhythm games have been quite popular, like in the past 5-10 years. Like Guitar Hero really got huge, and there's been other similar titles, but it's never really kind of cross-genred into a shooter before, so it'd be interesting to see how they kind of bring the two different concepts together of shooting people and music. It could be really fun. Like, I'm not sure how competitive it will be, but it could be one of those games that is just really fun to play with mates and have a good time.
Yeah, so what they've done is they've retracted the game.
Yeah.
To basically take another look at it. They've taken in the feedback, and they're reworking the game. They haven't. I don't think they've said what it's going to look like when it comes out. But it's up for changes. I just checked, by the way, and it's not the people that do Trackmania or Beatmania. It's the people that do Rock Band.
Oh, okay. So it is literally from
yeah,
that kind of
straight out of that.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing how this shapes up. It's definitely one of the weirder ones on the list we've got.
Yeah, definitely.
Next one is much more of a classic. Doom 4. Everybody knows the Doom franchise, and Doom 4 is bringing it back from ID, and it's a long time since we've had a Doom game. I think it was it 2007 or 2006 Doom 3 came out? might have even been before then actually. I can't remember.
Double check. It's 2004.
Oh wow, okay. So 10 years then. It's a decade since we've had a Doom game.
And there's a lot of people that wouldn't really count it. So.
Yeah, it was kind of very different from the first two.
Yeah, so they say this one is going back to being more classic Doom, more fast-paced, lots of blood, lots of guns, things like that. It had a little showing at QuakeCon, which lots of people at the event would have seen, but it's not been shown publicly yet. So, but the point, the reason it's on the list, I suppose, is because it's, first of all, it's going back to being a more fast-paced game, more like Doom 2. I think that's closer to what we can expect, and it's going to have multiplayer, because if you were to buy Wolfenstein: The New Order, you would get into the multiplayer beta for Doom 4. So
right, okay, interesting.
Fast-paced multiplayer game with Doom weapons. That fits the bill, I'd say.
Yeah, I'm looking for it. It should be fun. I mean, Wolfenstein, because Wolfenstein and Doom they emerged around the same time period, back in the early 90s, didn't they? They've recently just brought a Wolfenstein game out, and that had really positive reviews. It did a lot better than people thought, and if they can, if the company behind it, I'm not sure if it's the same company, but it's the same publisher that's behind the two games, I'm pretty sure. If they can do the same thing with the Doom franchise and kind of renew it for 2014, but at the same time kind of go back to its roots, it will be really cool. It should be fun.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that it looks like it's influenced by, or at least it looks similar to Brutal Doom, which is a mod for Doom.
Oh, really?
Which basically just adds a fuck ton of blood, and it's there's like you can stick the middle finger up your enemies and things, and it's got finishing moves and stuff, and it sounds a lot similar to what people have seen in the trailer at QuakeCon.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next game, which is Project Nex, and this is how do you best describe Project Nex?
Heavily focused on movement, I'd say.
Yeah, it's kind of there's really two camps of arena FPS shooters, and one being Unreal Tournament, one being Quake. And I feel like Project Nex is more in the Unreal Tournament side of things, in terms of how its movement is kind of designed.
Yeah, if the character from Unreal Tournament got a lot better at free running, I suppose.
Yeah, but just in terms of a general feeling, because they originally had bunny hopping in the game, but that was taken out. I don't know exactly when, but quite recently, wasn't it?
Yeah, so they showed off the new movement, which I think, if I can recount all of them, it's got dodging.
Yeah.
It's got air dashes, wall jumps, wall slides. It's got skiing, similar to Tribes. It's got rocket jumps. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. It had wall clamps earlier on, which is where you could basically you could jump really high with a rocket jump or something and clamp yourself to the wall, maybe for an ambush or something like that. I'm not sure if that's still in there, but the general gist of it is that movement is a big part of the game, and it all works off a energy bar or a stamina sort of system that depletes as you use different move techniques. I think some of them use the energy bar, some of them don't. Yeah,
I mean, that's something that's almost similar to Unreal Tournament's adrenaline system. I know that was kind of different, but in terms of having a resource for your character, opposed to just armor, health, and ammo, you've got this new kind of resource, and it'd be interesting to see how that can be used, especially from a competitive level, how kind of players can abuse stamina and kind of trap other players by making them run out of stamina so they can't get away. And I think it'd be there might be a bit of backlash against it, possibly, because a lot of the traditional arena FPS fans are kind of they're not big in terms of change. I don't know if you're kind of familiar with that, but they like how the games used to be in the olden days, and kind of they see stamina and other things like that as dumbing down the genre. But
it's had some backlash already, and people are seeing it as a restriction. Some people are seeing it, some people are on board with it, so it's pretty split. It's going to definitely need tweaking when it gets to alpha testing, I imagine, to get a fit that isn't really restricting but still allows the amount of strategy they want to come with it.
Yeah, what I like about it is it means you can put more in inverted commas, overpowered abilities in the game if you can't use them all the time, if you can only use them periodically. So you can kind of give the player more choice. I like it personally. I'm all for kind of making the genre more varied, and you can only really do so much with just kind of bunny hopping and like strafe jumping and
there's games coming out that are going to have dodges and are going to have strafe jumping, so it's not like we lose out on that as well.
Exactly. I mean, there's so many games coming out in the future, so if there's something for everybody really, which is quite nice.
Yeah, it's worth noting as well that Project Next has been greenlit on Steam, so so that's definitely a plus side for it. And
the greenlight page I'm showing now.
It's definitely a game that looks exciting.
Yep. Shall we move on to the next game then?
Yep.
This is Reborn, which is being developed by James Too Good Harding, who used to be a Quake player. I think it was Quake 4.
Yeah.
And it's very early in terms of alpha sandbox right now that I'm showing, but there's a lot of Dota influence in terms of adding abilities into the game. I don't know what to talk about that.
Yeah, so it's so what we've seen is the game uses strafe jumping like Quake 3. It's in the settings. It's got the capacity for air control and crouch sliding and things like that. But we don't really know if what he's gonna stick with out of those. In terms of similarities I've seen to Dota, it's got things like blinks similar to blink daggers. It's got a type of rocket splash that instead of pushing people away from the splash zone, it pulls them inwards, similar to a vacuum.
I'm showing that right now. It's cool. You can kind of jump and then fire in front of you, and you get shot off ahead, kind of with really increased acceleration, much faster than strafe jumping could acquire in the same time period.
There's a move or it might be an item that you can use that will reverse your movement for the past 2 seconds or 1 second or something. I'm not sure how long it is, which is quite similar
to the last movement. So if you jump, it will jump you back to where you jumped from.
So a single movement.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is it doesn't. You don't lose any momentum when you're doing it, so you can kind of be moving quite quickly and then you're instantly reverse at the same speed.
Yeah, so these all look like they're going to be single use if he keeps them at all, because it's so early that it just looks like he's asking his developer to put a bunch of stuff in for him to play around with and see if he likes it, and then he's going to decide what he wants to keep and what he doesn't, but we're going to have to wait and see for that.
Yeah, and there's some interesting ideas he's got in terms of game modes. There's one where it's kind of 2v2 duel, where one player plays with the robot and the other player kind of plays a little robot that sits on your shoulder and has a separate set of abilities that which don't necessarily kind of do damage to the opponent, but can either trick the opponent or kind of shields and various things like that. I think that could be kind of a cool game mode.
Yeah, I think he called it the Wingman game mode, and compared the little robot to the robot in Halo. I forgot what it's called now. The Spark or something. Yeah, the one you use in the Forge mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he gave an example where a player might want to jump across a little gap to reach a red armor or something, but he knows his opponent's going to be there because it's a common spot to look at or something with the railgun.
Yeah.
So his wingman might make a clone of his character, make that clone jump across the gap, then his opponent will shoot the clone, and then during the time where his rail will cool down, then his wingman or his player can jump across the gap and get to the armor. So it sounds interesting, but again, we don't know if he's definitely going to stick with that or if he's going to do anything that follows that at all. He sort of just made it as a passing comment, but it does sound like the game's going to be rooted in arena FPS in terms of strafe jumping and rocket launchers and things like that. But then he's going to add a bunch of interesting extra things to it. But it's one of the ones I'm most excited for. So
yeah, I think so. One thing that the arena FPS genre has kind of struggled with, and you could say the same thing about RTS genre as well, compared to recent MOBAs, is that people really enjoy team games. So, for example, the three of the most popular games competitively right now are League of Legends, Dota 2, and Counter-Strike Go, and they're all very much kind of 5v5 team-focused games. So I think adding a more of a team-focused like dual environment into Arena FPS could really improve the popularity of it, because it can feel quite oppressively difficult when you're getting just absolutely destroyed by a better player in an Arena FPS dual game. And I think by kind of adding a teammate into it might make the experience a little bit less stressful, if nothing else. I don't know if you agree with that.
But I definitely think that, because I do like the innovation and things like that, but I definitely think that it should be standard for any of these games to think about just making sure they have the 1v1, the classic, and then innovating outside that as well.
No, I think that's definitely...
That is the strength of the genre, so...
I think that has to be the focus, but then anything you could add on top of that which kind of enhances different game modes more, I'm very much welcome to those ideas. Right, let's move on to the next game, which is Reflex.
Yeah, this one's doing really well. So this is another one that is much more similar to Quake than UT. It's a spiritual successor to CPMA, which for people who don't know is a mod for Quake 3 that adds things like, it had much more movement options. It added air control, stair jumps. I've forgotten what lots of them are called. It added a ton of things that it rebalanced the armor system.
Yeah, and some of the weapons as well.
Rebalanced the weapons, and it's still played today. It's not hugely popular, but the community of CPMA is really passionate about it.
Yeah, like Quake is already quite a quick game, but it really accelerated the speed of Quake. It feels much faster, so it's more of a niche pick than some of the other ones. I think it will it's definitely got its hardcore supporters, and whether it can kind of engage the wider community will be the test for this game, I think. I think it recently has been greenlit, and there was a what's it called, Kickstarter quite recently, which I'm not sure if it made, but there's definitely kind of a lot of interest behind it.
So when it had the Kickstarter, it didn't make the money it needed, which is unfortunate. But it had well over 1,000 backers, which was really good for an Arena FPS game nowadays, I'd say. And it had articles in PC Gamer, Rock Paper Shotgun, Indie Game Mag or something like that. It had tons of them.
I think GameSpot as well, possibly.
Yeah.
So I think they were all due to the green light. So even though the green light maybe didn't succeed financially, it really did a lot for the game. The
Kickstarter, you mean? Yeah.
Sorry, the Kickstarter even. The Kickstarter, it didn't actually financially back the game, but it did a lot in terms of improving awareness and kind of marketing for the game.
Yeah, and for a new game in this genre, and considering what this genre's community is like, it's done really well at gaining support.
Yeah, engaging like the core audience, I think.
Yeah, and I haven't played this game in any recent version. I played quite an early version, I think.
Yeah.
But even then, it was a really fun game to play. So I'm looking forward to this one coming out.
Yeah, and it's got some new interesting movement systems, doesn't it? Hasn't it got a stake gun that you can shoot at a wall and then jump off?
Yeah, so it's got everything that CPMA has got, which is an awful lot compared to regular Quake 3. And then it's also got a stake gun akin to Painkiller, where you can shoot the stake at the wall. Yeah. Which creates a step for you to use to gain extra distance. You can jump onto the step and jump off it, or you can use it to gain some height. And you can also use the stake gun as a weapon. So that's going to be really interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see how they balance the maps around that as well, because that's a lot more spots that you can get to now using a stake jump.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see kind of the interaction with other players. I mean, what would be really fun if you could stake someone and then like jump off their dead body off the stake. That'd be amazing.
Jump off the stake through their head.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whether that be possible or not, I don't know. But also graphically, I was meaning to say, it looks really nice. It's quite simplistic currently in its current form, but it's got a very sleek and smooth design. And
yeah, everything's really clear. Like the lightning gun, I don't know if the effects are going to change or not, but the lightning gun's really blue. The plasma gun's really purple, and the rocket launcher's really red and orange. So it's really good for spectators, and the maps are so clean.
and I think they're hoping to have like tournaments and ladders and various kind of community-focused tools in it as well, which is something that's kind of missing from like the original FPS games, because obviously they weren't around back then. But all the modern kind of competitive games have these tools, and I think Arena FPS could really benefit from them.
Yeah, they've got some good ambitions with this one.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next game, which is Toxikk.
So this is similar to Bluestreak and Chroma and Doom 4.
Yep.
This is another one that's made by a fully legit studio so they kind of made it secretly.
Yeah.
They must have put, I think it was 2 years they said, into it without anyone knowing it. Knowing it was around. And it's essentially it looks very similar in gameplay to Unreal Tournament 2004, but with graphics, modern graphics, and the game looks nice. I don't know how it plays, but it looks nice.
Yeah, it's kind of almost like Crysis or Blacklight Retribution, kind of those kind of quite realistic looking graphics, whereas the games, like some of the other games we've been looking at, are much more kind of clean and kind of futuristic graphics, whereas this is a bit more gritty and a bit more, I can't think of the word, of like visceral maybe. So it's definitely going to appeal to possibly the kind of less hardcore Arena FPS fans, or like more general FPS fans, because it's just kind of a more graphically focused game than the other ones that we've been looking at.
They marketed the game in a sort of, we're making this game with absolutely zero bullshit sort of policy. Like there's going to be no classes, no free to play, no cosmetics, all that sort of stuff.
No insights and
which was it was nice to see that in the trailer. They chucked a bunch of vehicles in the trailer as well, which was kind of a downside on that. Because if I was making a game with no bullshit, I think I'd probably just not include vehicles as well.
It's an interesting philosophy. They kind of selling the game as a hardcore Arena FPS game, but actually, if you look at it from face value, it's much more of it's got a lot of elements of the modern shooter, like modern military shooter. For example, when you kill someone, it has kind of 50 points come up on your screen, which is very much a kind of a trope of the modern military shooter genre, and not a trope of the Arena FPS genre. But if it can kind of meld the two together and bring in new players to the Arena FPS genre that wouldn't have been interested in the other games we're kind of focusing on today, but kind of would like this one, and then maybe they would check out Reflex and Reborn.
Because that's the hope. So it's for people's understanding, it's using the movement from Unreal 2004.
Yeah.
So it's got dodging, it's got rocket jumps. Does it have a dodge jump? I can't remember.
Possibly.
They did a movement video recently.
Okay, I'll check that out. I mean, the vehicles are interesting because Unreal 2004 really, the vehicle modes are very, very popular. And again, it's it's more of a, not relaxed, but it's not like it's not catering to the hardcore Arena FPS clique or group of people.
Yeah, and it might turn out to be an actually really good thing, because it could be one of those things where the vehicle game modes get a lot of people playing it.
Yeah.
And then there's the more hardcore game modes for them to dip into anyway. So, because like Unreal Tournament 2004 now, if you go on it and you look for deathmatch servers, or you look for CTF servers, it's pretty sparse. But then if you go to vehicle CTF, or you go to Instagib or something like that, then it's full of people. So.
And it had a really good reaction in the kind of this online social media communities, more so than the other games, which is interesting. I'm not sure, like it had instant kind of attention by a lot of people, and I think some of the other games have had to try a lot harder for the same kind of attention that kind of
something like Reflex is in my opinion they've got a much better ambition, they've got a much better goal in mind, and it looks like a much better game in my opinion, and it's getting much less views than something like Toxikk is.
Yeah. Shall we move on to the new Unreal Tournament?
Yeah.
Which was a complete shocker for probably most people. It's been 2008 or 7 Unreal Tournament 3 came out, and it didn't really have the kind of reaction from the community that I think Epic wanted. They were a little bit in two minds about the game at the time. They've been saying how they had too much influence from the Gears of War franchise, which was what really took off for them at the same time. And I think it really suffered from kind of not sticking to its roots, Unreal Tournament 3. But a new Unreal Tournament game is crazy. I don't know what you think about just...
So it's definitely going to be competition for Toxikk, because the gameplay styles are so similar.
Oh yeah. And it's definitely the biggest studio that's behind any of these games by like a long way. Epic are very well seated.
Epic and ID are the two big studios behind games right now. So it's built in collaboration with the community. So people have been submitting bits of code and weapon designs and things like that. And that, I think initially I was a bit skeptical, because I was just sort of hoping that Epic would just make a game again.
Yeah.
And they weren't, because if you go on the forums, some of the things the community is saying are ridiculous, and that's myself included. I was on the forums quite a lot, and I'm sure half the people who read lots of things I said and thought, Christ.
Yeah.
But that's just how it is. The community's arguing over a lot of things, and then I was worried that was going to translate into the game. We were going to get a mismatch of all sorts of terrible stuff. But it's looking really good. And I saw a community thread where they were designing the shock rifle.
Yeah.
And it looked really good from the initial designs they had to how it progressed, to suggestions people were making, and then people uploading new renders of their models and stuff, and it looked really nice. So it looks like it's going all right.
I mean, they had the game open to being developed and kind of worked on by the community from day one, and also kind of a downloadable GitHub repository from day one if you had access to Unreal Engine 4, and it meant that anyone could kind of just have a play and make a prototype, or just make kind of concept art online. And I know what you're saying about it being a bit worrying what the community would come up with, but I think Epic are one of the companies that have been around for so long and have such experience in the field that they know when to take advice and when to kind of not take the advice seriously. And there's so much community discussion that kind of the community even evens itself out. So like extreme comments will kind of be like taken, and then other people like retorts to them, and kind of the end conclusion of most threads seem to be quite fair and balanced, even if there's a lot of crazy individual opinions. That overall the overall feel of the thread tends to kind of be neutraled by some of its parts, if that makes any sense. I'm not sure if it did.
Yeah. So I don't think it's that much of an issue. I'm quite glad that it's happening now. So even if UT isn't the type of arena FPS that I want now, it looks like it's going to be a game that it does well. It's going to be free when it comes out.
Yeah, it's free to play.
You can already try out the pre-alpha stage of it. It's got the UT community behind it, putting their word in. So if it comes out like UT3, where the community just hates everything that's in it, then it's on their heads as well.
Well, they've got no excuse because they kind of did so much design work on it. And it's the funding model is that, so if I develop a map for Unreal Tournament, I can sell it on the marketplace, and I'll receive a certain percentage of the kind of money that it makes, and then Epic will receive a small percentage, similar to how Steam works. If anybody is like aware of how hats work in Team Fortress 2, where a guy can make a hat and then he sells it, Valve gets some of the kind of proceedings and he gets the rest, and it's going to work like that, but with mods and maps and characters, and it's quite an interesting way of kind of funding a game. It's definitely going to be down to the community whether it succeeds or fails, I think. But so far it's looking really good, and I'm looking forward to seeing it kind of evolve over time.
Yeah, the most interesting changes that I saw, or the most interesting part of the development for me to follow was the movement.
Yeah, definitely.
So they have actually. I was hoping they'd take huge strides in the movement and have something really different to what they've had. And some people did come up with designs for that. You were someone who came up with a design for it, and a couple of other people came up with some designs that I really liked as well. They've sort of stuck with their UT-99 dodging.
Yeah.
They've really embraced rocket jumps in this one, which I like. They've implemented the wall slide, which again I really like, because I think that's going to add a lot more pace to it and a lot more movement options. And they've added the dodge roll, which I'm sort of mixed about.
Yeah, the dodge roll isn't, in its current iteration, it's not too great. You kind of just you roll after doing a dodge, and he just glues you to the ground at a set pace, and you just kind of tumble. It doesn't really have. I mean, the only real advantage is it makes your hitbox smaller for half a second. But the fact that they're trying new things in terms of movement is encouraging. And what I'm hoping is they're kind of just trying to nail down the base movement right now, and then they might be a bit more open to trying out new things once they've kind of really nailed down the movement. Because this game's not been in development that long. It was about May that it started, and a lot of the groundwork, just in terms of making the weapons work, for example, in order for you to test the game, had to go in. So it's all very much kind of alpha, nothing set in stone yet.
I hoped for more movement changes, but I'm glad there's some, and it's like you say, it's still up for changes. So
let's move on to what appears to be the last game on the list, which is Wickland.
Yeah, I like the look of this one.
It's turn the sound off. It's very different in terms of immediately aesthetic rise, which I like, to the rest, and it has a lot of different kind of in-game. The actual game functions very differently to the rest. I don't know if you'd like to talk about kind of I wouldn't call it a class system, but how would you best describe it?
So I haven't actually had a chance to try the game yet because it's having some sort of problem with my antivirus, which is I think they said they were going to fix it in the last patch. I'm not sure if they have. I haven't got around to downloading it yet. But the way the game works, from what I can tell from gameplay videos, is that each character spawns as a human on the map, and they have a crossbow, and then around the map are items. So in the same way that in Quake or UT you'd pick up a weapon, in this you pick up what I believe is a transformation for your character.
Yeah.
So one example is a sort of beast shotgun. So you'd pick that up, and that gives you a different transformation for your character, which acts like a shotgun.
Yeah.
And that transformation has its own health.
Yep.
And then, if your enemy was to kill you, to kill that transformation, then you would no longer be able to turn into that. If that was the only one you'd had, you'd be back to being a human again.
Yeah.
And I think your enemy would then be able to pick up that transformation after removing it from you. And the way the game works is there's all the transformations around the map. You've got to keep yourself topped up on transformations, and the first one to have all theirs defeated and stolen from them. And then when they're in a human mode, I believe, if they die in that mode, then I think that's the end of the duel. So it's a one life duel system.
And it's interesting because the transformations are essentially classes in terms of you have different abilities when you're in each form.
Yeah.
And class systems in a pickup environment, I don't think it's ever been done before.
I haven't seen any
I mean, it's
like this.
Almost similar to Alien vs Predator, the game from years gone by, where as Alien, you can, if you got a kill, then you turn into the next Alien, and then if you got another kill, you'd evolve. But it doesn't work quite like that because it's a pickup system rather than a evolving system.
Yeah, the transformations work off using the same sort of weapons that we all know from the game. So there's one that uses something that's essentially a railgun transformation, there's a shotgun transformation, a rocket launcher, a plasma gun style transformation, but they all look really cool. Like the railgun one is, you've got these like big blue lobster hands, and it looks kind of quakey, the aesthetic of the game.
Yeah, I'd say more like Painkiller even.
Yeah.
It's got a very Painkiller vibe to it, kind of a medieval gothic, like demons and that kind of thing going on, which I like. A lot of the other games we've been looked at are very just near future or futuristic kind of combat, and well, everyone loves lasers and rocket launchers. Kind of more magical based kind of theme is very cool. It's just nice to see kind of more variation.
Yeah, something like Hexen.
Yeah, that's a good example. So I'm definitely looking forward to this, and I'm not sure. It's been greenlit, hasn't it? So
yeah, this is another one that's on Steam.
So we'll hopefully see some more in the future.
So just for everyone's clarification, of the whole list, Bluestreak not publicly available, Chroma not publicly available, Doom Force not publicly available, Project Nex isn't publicly available but has been greenlit.
Yeah.
Reborn is publicly available. You can download the alpha from reborn.gg.
Yep.
Reflex is not publicly available, but it has been greenlit.
Yep.
Toxikk you can buy into the early access if you go on to the website, which I've forgotten the URL for, but we can put that at the bottom.
Yep.
Unreal Tournament 4 is another one that you can get playing now, which you can download from the Unreal Tournament forums. And Wickland you can also play now and has also been greenlit on Steam.
Yep.
So it's moving quickly. They're all. It's not like everything's speculation. Nothing is playable, so that's good.
Yeah, there's definitely kind of more of a theme these days of making games playable more early. So it's encouraging because it means you can kind of see what a game's going to be like a long time before it's released. But yeah, that's all the games we want to talk about today. I don't know if you've got any clothing sorts or.
Yeah, believe it or not, this isn't the full list.
No, there's other games we want to look at, and we'll probably do another video about them shortly.
Yeah, they're all good-looking games as well. They're not less good-looking than these. So.
No, the other games are kind of more indie-ish, maybe kind of a little bit less traditional. You might want to say some of them are, especially. So looking forward to kind of showing you those as well. I think that's pretty much everything I want to talk about for now. So thanks for watching. I've been Galanguar, and this is Neeple.
Yep, I've been Neeple. Thank you very much.
But yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.